particular cooking episode is a little on the challenging side. I'm going to make choux pastry, and the thing about choux is that choux smells your fear. Choux senses your uncertainty, and choux will strike and ruin itself at any opportunity. So it's one of those recipes where you have to follow it very precisely quite throughout, and there are many steps. The ingredients that I need to do this are, I've got some flour, I've got some whole milk, got some water, I've got a little bit of salt and some sugar, I've got some butter, and I have several eggs, most of which are for inclusion in it itself at a certain point. And then I also have one egg for some egg wash. Basically, I need my stand mixer. I've got a pot over there and a wooden spoon, and this is for putting on the egg wash at the end. Filling them is a different story, and I may or may not do that, but we'll see. All right, so now what we need to do is get this pan going on medium heat. Mine runs a little hot, so I'm gonna put it at 4. And the first step is to combine the butter, water, the milk, and the sugar and salt. And then stir this around until the butter melts. Then we go to the next stage. Our butter, milk, water, sugar and salt mixture is completely liquefied. And so now what we do is bring it to a simmer. So we're gonna bring it up just a little bit. So we've reached the stage of simmering. And so then what we do is dump all the flour in at once and turn it down to low. So then what we're gonna do is stir this flour until this becomes just kind of a big ball. Okay, so we've got the consistency that we want. So now what the job is to do is to squash this stuff against the walls of the pan for about a minute, and that cooks the flour more completely than it has been before. It's been a minute, and so now what we can do is move over to the mixer spot for the next stage of the recipe. At this point, what I'm going to do is transfer the dough into the mixer, and then I'm going to let it cool off for a little bit because it needs to not be quite so hot when we hit the next stage, which involves the eggs and so forth. The next step in this recipe is to beat some eggs, the whole egg this time, and then add that beaten egg mixture to the choux pastry as you're blending it. So we're good. So I need to beat these eggs, and then I will be blending, and I'm probably not going to show that because it'd be noisy, but basically you put the eggs in a little bit at a time until the dough reaches this kind of shiny consistency, and I'll come back and show you that once we get to that point. I'm going to add just the last bit of egg, and I think we're right there where we want to be with this. So I'm going to speed it up just a minute, and then we'll take it back to low for a second. Here we are, and I'm looking at it. Looks a little bit like mashed potatoes in a way, but you can kind of, maybe it doesn't seem apparent from here, but it's got kind of a glistening, shiny surface to it. We are ready for the next step, which is to put this goo into a piping bag. And that is kind of a frightening situation and extremely messy. So now what we need to do is get this into here. I've got 2 of them. just in case something bad happens. But kind of a key point of this is that you got to get the tip in first before you start putting stuff in it. And that requires you to kind of force that thing down in there so that you can get a decent seal, and then, you know, kind of cut around there so that you can actually get something in it. And let's see what else I got here that would help. So I've got a little cut made. So I'll go ahead and cut the rest of this around here. Almost. Yeah, good enough. So we got the tip down in there, and now I need to put the shoe into the bag. And so, as I said, I mean, there's messier things, but this never goes like you think it's going to. It's sticky, and, you know, it's a mess. So we're going to do the best we can with what we got, which in your case, watching me, is doing the best I can. Another thing is that it can be tempting to like fill the thing all the way to the top. But what ends up happening then is that it just squirts out the top, which doesn't help anybody with anything. One trick that I saw is to put them in these things, which is kind of nice. I'm gonna fold this over now and try to squeeze this stuff down so that it gets to the tip part without there. And we got it. So as you can see, it kind of wants to come up the top too, but we're good enough on that one. So now I got another one to do, and then we'll start piping. Now it's time to start piping. And again, parchment paper is the rule here. And so I've got that ready to go. Again, with shoe, you don't want to mess around. Follow the instructions exactly. I know that I've said in other content about cooking that you can kind of wing some things. Choux is completely unforgiving of that. Just do exactly what it says. In this case, I've got the parchment paper, I'm doing that, and now I'm going to start piping. Basically, the job is to pipe like just a pile, kind of a circular pile, and I'll show this in a minute. And it takes a fair bit of force to get this stuff out, even though it's hot and even though it's pretty slick type of stuff. You got to push hard. And the other thing is to keep a real tight grip on the top, because you could, you know, like I've seen people put rubber bands on and all that kind of stuff, and it just doesn't work for me. I always get some that comes out the top anyway. I'm using both hands to kind of make sure the top stays sealed and to push down on this thing and get this stuff out. Here's where we are. I've got 8 really nicely piped ones that are, generally speaking, how you want them to look mostly. And then we had a failure of the tip, which came out of the bag, which means that there's no way to put it back. And so what we've got is some experimental choux, and we'll see what happens with them. And I know that they look kind of gross, but I'm hoping that they won't taste that way. The next step is to put the egg wash on. That's not exactly exciting, so I won't show you that. And then we'll bake them. So the next thing you'll see is when they're done. So they're out of the oven. It was 20 minutes at 400 degrees and then down to 350 for about 12. The ones that I suspected would be the more coherent were kind of not as much, while the ones that came out of the kind of improvised process when the tip broke in the bag are actually much more consistent.